What's going on out there, folks? Welcome on in another edition of Over and Back. If you're looking for the one-stop shop for all things bet in PLL, you have found the right place. I'm your host, Dan Alexander, and we're going to get right into it because we got a jam-packed show today. Very excited to welcome in our fourth guest of the season. We got the man, the myth, the legend, Doogs stopping by. And I say the legend because you see this dude between the pipes. Are you kidding me, man? You can find him with Barstool Sportsbook, of course, and of course, the co-host of the Crease Dive Podcast. Doogs, how you doing, brother?
That was a hell of an introduction. It's way better than Jordy ever gives me. But look, gambling show, you talked about me in between the pipes. I'm about as good of a bettor as I am a goalie, which means shite. But look, you play to win the game, and we got a jam-packed, some jam-packed games this weekend, and some good-ass lines out there on the Barstool Sportsbook.
Dude, I'll tell you what, speaking of good-ass lines, the odds makers have only gotten better at making these odds, because some of these, dude, when the openers come up, I'm like trying to find value here or there, and I'm like, God damn. Like, I love it because that means more people are betting on it, more people are watching it, but, dude, the odds makers are getting better, which means they're paying attention to the sport. I just think that's good for all of us, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you nailed that. I mean, once it's like, I compared this last year. So the last year when the lines first got announced, or even like 2 years ago when the lines got first announced, it was such a new sport to bet on that there wasn't enough data, and you could really find some holes in the like algorithms or the analytics, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's being more bet on now. The sports books know what they're doing. They know how to set the lines. They know how to set the over-unders. So yeah, it's great for lacrosse in general because it means more people are betting on it, but it's also bad for us who thought that we had a competitive edge in it.
Yeah, exactly. The competitive edge is shrinking, but that's why people tune in, of course, to the Crease Dive and here on Over and Back. So, my guy, let's get right into it. Let's get into our quick stick segment here right at the top, and we're going to start Friday at 9:15. This Chaos and Water Dogs game, I just think this one's insanely hard to bet. We got Chaos as 1.5-point favorites, totals 23.5, and the reason why I wanted to probably start with this one is just because, like, how do you bet this game? Like, can you bet this game without knowing who's going to be in? All the players that are potentially going to return for Chaos, all the injury concerns that Water Dogs had last week. Like, can you bet this game as we're recording here on a Tuesday? Are you like, man, I need to know who's playing?
Look, definitely. You got to wait. I'll just say this. You got to wait to see who's playing because obviously you have people on the Chaos who are probably banged up from the NLL Championship Series that they just had. Then you have, like, is Dylan Ward going to play? How will Dylan Ward adjust from coming from box goalie to field goalie? He's been seeing shots in the big cage. So there's a lot of factors at play. And look, if you're looking at DeLuca, grew up playing against him, great goalie, but he really has had a tough season, 42 save percentage. So the way that I'm looking at the over-under in this game, if DeLuca's in cage, I'm leaning a little bit on the over because I think the Chaos with some players, because I'm thinking, all right, I'm thinking Ward's out and some Chaos players come back. So I'm thinking over. But if it's Ward coming back and all the Chaos people coming back too, I'm leaning under because I think that the Chaos defense right now, every game seems to be going under except when so I'm liking the Chaos defense when I'm seeing out of them. Water Dogs defense, I still like. Just DeLuca's the one red flag that I have right now with the Water Dogs defense.
Well, and like DeLuca just got thrown into the deep end too. You know what I mean? Like right out of the gate, they have teams that can score that they're going up against. So I'm kind of with you. You know, it's not like you want to throw the dude under the bus, but there's a definite difference between when DeLuca's in cage and Ward is in cage. But I don't know, man. That 23.5, again, a solid number right there. Even if Ward does come back, any of that rust or adjustment from field to box that you kind of alluded to that kind of makes you worried about saying, oh, this is going to be a rundown under? Because if this was Ward at full strength, Ward good to go against Reardon, automatically I'm saying, why isn't this line 22.5?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Honestly, the thinking there was, I think Ward's just way more comfortable talking to the defense that's in front of him.
Fair.
He's been with these guys for a year now. I mean, DeLuca, these are basically his first 3 pro games. So, like, he's trying his best. I mean, it's hard just to throw a guy in cage and be like, hey, like, get this defense in loop, get them all, like, coalition, get them, like, going. But I think Ward, at the very least, can get this defense in just a rhythm, back to their slide packages that they're used to, and just being that veteran leader for them. But, yeah, even when you're talking about the injuries, like Sowers coming back or something, I think that, honestly, the Water Dogs Water Dogs offense kind of looks better without them. I mean, you see Kieran McCardle really this is the team that was the number 1 seed last year without Michael Sowers. I'm not saying Michael Sowers is a bad player. I'm just saying the Water Dogs might be a better team without him. That's just the reality of the situation.
Well, and a few weeks ago when we had Devin Caney on, she dropped the stat that this Water Dogs team has never won a game with Michael Sowers in the lineup. And again, to your point, that's not to bury Sowers. We all know what a hell of a player that he is, but until it happens, it's hard to say when will it happen. Now, we talked a lot about the total here, and of course, the game that we have probably the least to talk about. We still keep going back and forth, which I love to see right out of the gate here from Doogs. We talked a lot about the total, but as far as the side, one of these teams is going to be getting their first win. You know what I mean? So does anyone maybe need this game a little bit more? I think about the chaos and think about the fact that they were stumbling out the gate. A lot of people were saying they're the worst team in the league to start it last year. They end up winning the title. So maybe there's precedence that they can sit back on their heels a little bit more. But the Water Dogs came on late. There's no such thing as a must-win game in the week 4 of the season, but do you think either of these teams just needs to get that monkey off their back a little bit more? And if you do, who do you think that is?
So here's the way that I was looking at that is these two teams right now are probably realistically looking at anywhere if they want to make the playoffs from the 7 seed to about the 5 seed, right? In that range. I think the Water Dogs need it just a little bit more because the chaos in their minds are just look, let's just get into the playoffs. Let's be healthy in September. And let's just go win the whole thing. The Water Dogs are let's get the best seed possible. So I think this is more of a must win for the Water Dogs, considering that they're only missing right now Dylan Ward from their lineup. And, Sowers, obviously, you got the Napoli out, you got Withers out. But look, Tucci played well at X last week against one of the best guys in the league right now in Connor Farrell. So I'm leaning probably a little bit to the Water Dogs need to be a little bit hungry in this game. But I don't know. I think the chaos are a little bit revenge game. Just a lot of them just lost to Ward in the championship in the NLL series. So my pick in this one's probably going to be chaos -1.5. But obviously that can change once the injury reports come out and then who's going to be on the roster. You know how that goes.
Yeah, and last thing I'll say on this game before we swing into this Chrome and Cannons game, and then we'll get into our total talk following that, is we have a 15-game sample size of widely available lines going back to last season. The Chaos have only been 1.5-point favorites one time. So that's one time in 15 games. It was against the Water Dogs. It was last year, and Chaos ends up losing that game outright. Water Dogs got the win 14-12. So one game sample size. I'm not saying pull off the rubber band. I'm just saying this is a spot that the Chaos haven't been in often, and when they were, it was one time against the Dogs. Dogs end up getting the win in that one. So let's swing into this game on Saturday, my guy. I'm pumped for this one. It's Chrome, 1.5-point favorites against Cannons. Total in this one, 24.5. I don't know, dude. Are you surprised by the Chrome at all? Because coming into the year, this was a team that I had a major buy sign sitting on. I was pumped up, especially with Malloy coming back. Are you surprised at all what you're seeing with Chrome? And then we'll get into the game specifically.
No, anyone out there that's a Crease Dive listener knows that I've been gassing up the Chrome for a while now. It's one of, I'm not the best week by week picks, but this is one thing that I got right this year, I think. But it's still early on the season. But yeah, I really, really do like the Chrome. I think Mike Manley's playing as a defensive player of the year right now. He would be my pick to right now. Nick Turn possibly looks like rookie of the year. Look, it's just the classic pseudo just getting the guys that are going to buy into his style of play, and they look legit. I mean, when Randy Stotts went to the player pool, people like pseudo, what are you doing? Looks like they're buying in, and it looks like it's paying off for them. It's either my way or no way.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. Total in this one, 24.5. Again, Chrome favorites. Funny thing is that the Chrome got their first cover ever as favorites last week. They were all about being underdogs. They finally see the market catching up and saying, hey, this team might be legit. So first cover last week. I mean, do they make it 2 straight? It sounds like you probably think they might win this game against the Cannons, but covering a goal and a half, that's a tough proposition in the PLL, man.
Yeah, all these games either go to overtime, end in 1 goal. You know how it goes. And then this is what happens like last year. You think what's going to happen in this league. You think the league's predictable, and then the Water Dogs are in first place. They go from last to first. So you really never know what's going to happen. Could the Cannons win this game? Of course they can. This league's so competitive. But look, my ego is my ego, and all year I've been saying that the Chrome are going to be a team that everyone's going to be low on and that you should buy. And I've been saying that the Cannons are going to be shite and they're going to be at the bottom of the poll. So this is an ego game for me. I got to go the Chrome. If I pick the Cannons, I'm a nobody. So I'm going Chrome -1.5. Really like what I'm seeing. I love that attack line so much. Yeah, I think Chrome Chrome by like 3 or 4.
Yeah, and that's the thing is even with the win last week, I mean, that was as far as like a game in the third week of the season, you can't find a better game than that Chrome Water Dogs game where, they're up by 3, down by 4, up by 3, insane stuff. And it also showed credence that this team is going to fight their ass off no matter what. So I'm kind of with you. The only thing though that kind of worries me is Lyle Thompson. I don't think he was like 100% last week. And I also think defense is obviously skewed towards him. When you give any added motivation to Thompson, that worries me. And again, I like throwing in these little historical stats. The Cannons is 1.5-point dogs, 5-2 against the spread. And we're talking about a Chrome team that's only 1.5. So you're saying, dude, forget these trends. Forget, the 1-year data that we have. I'm riding with the ego. Give me Chrome and let's do it.
Yeah, and if we're like when you look at the Cannons defense, they rely on Morocco to make a lot of saves.
That's fair.
And they see a lot of shots. I mean, you see the Chrome are taking like 38 shots a game or something.
Yeah.
So I like the way the Chrome are shooting the ball right now. If Morocco, and look, this is what I said to Jordy. Jordy was saying, "Oh, I love the Cannons. You told them they'd suck and everything." If Morocco saved 60% of the shots, the Cannons are probably going to win the game. I mean, Stephen Kelly's facing off pretty well. If you go 60 and 60, if you go 60 from the X, 60 in the cage, you should win the game. So I think that the X factor is definitely Morocco. And if he can get over that like 55% threshold for save percentage.
Gonna come down to the goalies in this one. Speaking of goalies, let's get into this total talk game because Timmy Troutner had a little bit of a rough go of it to start the year. Kind of a little bit more of an even hand. We're talking this Whipsnakes and Redwoods game. ESPN2 nationally televised on Friday night, 6:30 Eastern time. Whips, to no surprise, favorites in this one, 1.5-point favorites, total 22.5. And that total is the reason why this is the Total Talk segment. We'll get into that in just a second, because first, I just want to get your take on the Woods. Like, they looked horrible the first 2 weeks. They were looking like, and the goal differential backed it up, the worst team in the league through 2 weeks, and then they just absolutely roll the Chaos. Do you think that was more like a little look ahead, the Chaos wanting their horses back, or like, are the Woods back? Are they not, the bottom of the barrel that they were looking like? What are you thinking?
I call them the dead Woods. They looked pretty dead. The water getting into those roots, but look, I'm still not very impressed by the Redwoods. The only thing I was impressed by was that they looked like they wanted to compete and battle, and they had that competitive spirit. It's nice to see Rob Pennell getting up for the boys, but I'm not really buying it. They had one really good third quarter against the Chaos where they kind of caught Blaze off guard, but besides that, the offense didn't do much for me to be impressed. Jules Henningberg is the guy that the Redwoods need to run the offense through. He is the initiator. Rob Pennell kind of has lost a step if he can transition to an off-ball player. Because right now, the Redwoods have a lot of guys that need the ball in their stick, and they don't have a lot of guys that can finish the ball and that can play off-ball and get it done. So that's really what I'm looking forward to with the Redwoods offense. I think if they want to succeed this year, they're going to have to go to the player pool, and they're going to have to find some guys that can play off-ball.
Yeah, and now you're going to be trying to figure that out against a Whipsnakes defense that's always just all over you. I mean, you look at what they were able to do against Atlas, hold them to the first time they haven't gotten to double digits this year. So I think part of what you're saying there with all the ball dominant players for the Woods and what I was talking about, the strong defense for Whips, is why we see the lowest total of the week. Typically, it's the Chaos game, because whenever Blaze Reardon's in cage, they always just say, all right, that's the lowest total of the week. But not only is this the lowest total of the week, it's the lowest total we've ever seen in a Whips and Woods game. So, I just look at that 22.5, and I feel like they're baiting me to take that over. But they played 3 times last year. 2 of the 3 meetings all went over. There were 2 games, 26 and 27, that were scored. The first meeting was 20 total goals, and the total in that one was 25.5. So, like, you got any vibe on this total, or you think you're going to attack the side? Because I just think this is begging me to take the over, and that worries me.
Yeah, I think this is your classic, it looks so easy to hit the over, take the under. So I'm definitely going to take the under here. Troutner played fine last week. I don't think he's had a good season. I'm a big Timmy Troutner guy to begin with. He's not had a good season, and he didn't really get tested last week. I think the Chaos really had 20 shots, and he might have had 8 saves, which is great. But this is not the Chaos that are like a depleted roster. The Chaos look like the replacements from the Replacements movie. And this is the Whipsnakes. 3 championship games, 2 championships. They might get Zed back. I'm going Whipsnakes minus 1.5 in the under. I like the way that Bernlohr played last week. I think that he's going to have a huge bounce back season to begin with. So yeah, I think my favorite bet of the weekend is Whip Stakes -1.5 in the under.
We got a best bet right here, and it sounds like maybe the Redwoods need Shane Falco maybe coming back and helping them out. is what it sounded like from my man Doogs here. I will say, though, in this matchup, you look at last year when we had lines widely available, it was the underdog that covered every time these teams played. All of them were 1.5. The Woods were dogs twice. They cover both times. Whips were underdogs once. They win that game outright. But it sounded like you think, probably not a close game what you're expecting. It's just the Whips maybe catching their stride. Redwood's still trying to find their footing. Is that, why you probably lean pretty heavy that way to the Whips?
Yeah, well, I think the Whip Stakes defense has been the strong suit of their season so far. I think
Agreed.
Every single game this year for them has gone under. And again, it just comes down to the Redwoods. What I've seen this year has been one good quarter of play. And
that's fair.
It was against a depleted chaos roster. I root for the Redwoods. Like, the Redwoods are one of my teams. Like, from the get-go of the league, I was like rooting for them. I'm just not impressed with what I'm seeing. I think the Whip Snakes defense is just, honestly, you could see probably the Redwoods score like 6 goals in this game. I think that the Whip Snakes are going to put on defensive masterclass. But again, it comes down to, this is the Whip Snakes versus the Redwoods. This is a rivalry game. It's really the first rival. It's the rivals that, so you never know how this game is going to play out. But I'm pretty confident in my Whip Snakes -1.5 and the under.
Under and the Whips there from our guy Doogs. Let's get into our angle of the week, my guy. We saved what looks to be on paper the game of the week for last. 8:45 Eastern, so cancel your Saturday plans. Atlas 1.5 point favorites taking on Archers. Total highest of the week, 25.5. We'll get to that in just a moment, because I want to just start with this Atlas team. Are you buying the hype? Because I still have some pause, because you look at the teams that they played early on in the season when they had the step up in competition against the Whip Snakes. A little bit underwhelming last week. Like, I'm still not fully in on this Atlas team. Are you all in on this hype? What are you thinking?
All in. All in.
All in.
Yeah.
No worries at all.
No worries, because if you even look at last week, it took the Whip Snakes had basically every time that the Atlas felt like they were going to get back into the game, the 2-ball helped the Whip Snakes push ahead. So really, I think the game was closer than the scoreboard indicated. At the same time, yes, the Atlas are young. And you're playing the Whip Snakes last week, which are the veterans. They were showing you last week, like, hey, you guys want to win this league, you got to get through us first. So I wasn't really shocked by the Whip Snakes when you really look at it on paper, but this line, this is good. The Atlas Archers will be an interesting game, because
Agreed.
Here's one thing with the Atlas that worries me a little bit. Jack Cannon is one of the best goalies in the league from the inside. When he gets a shot from 10 yards in, I don't think there's really anybody on the planet better than him. What does he struggle with? Outside shots. What do I think that the Archers excel at? Outside shots, perimeter shots. So I think that this one could be high scoring. So the total 25.5, I'm in love with. The more that I'm talking about it now, I want to make this my best bet, but I won't. But over 25.5 in this one. The Atlas offense too, like Jeff Teat went MIA last week. I can't see that happening again. I think also that the Whip Stakes defense is way better than the Archers defense. The Archers defense really last year was one of their strong suits. I thought they were very efficient, but doesn't seem like they're playing out that way right now. But I do like over 25.5. And I mean, ego bet Atlas -1.5, because me and Jordy always go back and forth about Archers and Atlas. So Atlas -1.5 and over 25.5.
And I think we're going to learn a lot about Atlas during this stretch. I think your point was a good one. That 2-ball really did kind of make that final score look a little bit different than maybe it was. But Atlas, they just play Whips. Now you got the Archers, and then you're going to learn a lot about the Chrome, because next week that's who they face off. So this is like a little murderer's row for them before All-Star Weekend. That this will do a lot for me buying in, or still having some hesitations against this Atlas team. And we talked at length about the Atlas. So let's get into the Archers here. 10 goals in week 1. Then they had 17, then 20 last week. So first, like, how good is this offense? Second part, how good can they be with Ament? And then the caveat for all of it, like, do they really need Ament? Because last week they put up 20. Like how good is this offense looking, man?
Yeah, I mean, Will Manny looks like MVP form. He looks
Animal.
Best season I'd say I've seen of him in the PLL by far. His shooting efficiency is outstanding. I mean, the offense has always been legit. The offense has never been a question for the Archers.
Yeah.
What screwed them in the past was the faceoff X.
Yep.
They should be able to get Ignacio back. They've been going with Frankie Labetti, who's like the backup faceoff guy from Fairfield. So look, if they can figure out the faceoff X, this is a completely different team that we're talking about here. They are one of the best offenses in the league. I think that what they can fall into is sometimes they go silent. You feel like they always put on these clinics where when they get hot, they put up 20 plus goals, 17 plus goals. And then all of a sudden they face like a pretty tough defense that's checking them, bodying them. So that's where I'll never really buy the Archers. But if we're talking about talent and offense, yeah, the talent's always been there. It's just a question, how many times can the offense get the touches that they need?
Now, do you think, because I'm right there with you, with Will Manny, when we heard what was, potentially going to be a lengthier injury for Ament, he was my pick to win the MVP just at the odds that he was at. I thought it was great value potentially there. Do you think that, when Ament comes back and he's finding where he's at, that this maybe stifles the offense? Because I think that's like one of the things that people get into a little bit too much in lacrosse. Like, I feel like lacrosse is a quick way to gain chemistry back. Like a lot of people say, oh, well, it'll take some time for him to learn where it's at on the field. Like, Ament's going to be like plug and play when he gets back, right?
Well, yeah, it's Grant Ament. I mean, he's one of the smartest players in the league. No, he sees passing lanes that you didn't even know existed.
Yeah, he makes them happen. You know what I mean? Like, he creates passing lanes.
There's definitely certain players where I'm going to feel like, oh, they got to it's like Ignacio, for example. He's a rookie coming out of college, has to learn the face-off rules again. Could he struggle the first week that he's back? Of course, because he went to training camp, had the week 1, then has to take basically 2 weeks off. So that stinks for him. I don't know how fast he's going to be able to adjust back into the lineup. But we're talking about Grant Ament. I mean, he's one of the best players in the planet. So I think that he's going to seamlessly go into this offense. And I think that the offense is obviously going to be better with him. I mean, you have 2 of the best passers in the planet when you have him and Tom Schreiber on the field.
It's scary to think of this offense being better if you're a fan of anybody but the Archers, because goddamn, 20 goals last week, 17 when they were like struggling. They still get double digits when they stumble out of the gate. So sounding like you don't think that there's any way, like, is there any game script? And again, there's no such thing as a lock. There's no such thing as like, this will never lose. Even your best players are going to lose, half of the time. But this 25.5, like, what's the game script that this goes under? It's just, the goalies play lights out. There's more possession than, because I just look at these two offenses and they're so predicated on like fast twitch scoring that it's just hard for me to make any case in any handicap that doesn't lead me to the over.
I think if there's the under, I would say that one team just owns the possessions and the other team just doesn't get enough touches.
And you have to think that would be Atlas, right? With the edge that they have at the X. I mean, best faceoff guy in Baptiste. So, it's crazy. It's almost like if the Archers cover this game, it almost plays towards it being an under game.
1,000%. I think that, look, Baptiste could potentially win 80% of the faceoffs this weekend.
Yeah.
So in my head, if the Archers don't get the touches that they want and that they need, we could be looking at like 15-8. And that's not like, but like you're looking at the Archers also, when they touch the ball, they're scoring. So that's where it could go under. But I think that the Archers could get some 2 bombs in and, on those possessions, get the 2 bombs that they need. I think they don't really play. I think the Archers are the worst matchup for Kincannon. I'd love to go back and see the history against him. But if we're talking about extending the field, extending from like deep, I think that Archers give Kincannon the most problems that they do, that they need.
And I'll tell you what, man, I just think with this 25.5, whether you're backing the over or the under, I think this is going to be a sweat either way. Like, I think it's going to come down to some possessions at the fourth quarter. I think it's going to land right around this 25.5. So get ready, get a total bet in on this game because it might be the funnest sweat of the week. Last thing I want to get to, Doogs, before we let you go and we get the folks out of here. Future odds. I pulled these from Barstool Sportsbook. We now see with the Whips win last week that they're favorites. You have Atlas and Chrome tied for second place. Archers third, not far behind. Cannon's fourth, and then it's the Redwoods, Chaos, and Water Dogs, the longest odds. You look at some of those, I don't know how you attack betting futures. If you do it often, you just sprinkle here and there. You just look at those numbers on the sports book there. Any of them worth it for you, or do you already have one in your pocket that you're like, I'm riding this one?
So I started off the year with 3. I started off with, I had the Whips, the Atlas, and the Dogs. But I'll say this. Me and Jordy were talking beginning of the year. I said, the Chaos are probably, I think right now, still the most talented team in the league. I think that their team chemistry above and beyond everybody else. They just have that locker room chemistry. So the Chaos at plus 850. 0-3, they could easily win it all. I think that everyone in the league knows how talented they are. They got the MVP. They got the best goalie in the nation, in the world, sorry. And yeah, I'd take a stab at Chaos plus 850. If you don't think that the Chaos are going to win this weekend, then hold on for another week, because I definitely would take another look at that. Water Dogs, I'm going to throw another half unit on.
Yeah, why not? 9-1?
Yeah,
why not?
I think a lot of people are down on the Dogs, but I still love that defense. They're injury riddled, but I still think their 6-on-6 offense is still legit. I thought they looked really good the past 2 weeks. I thought against the Cannons week 1, they had one really bad half. I think that the Water Dogs are getting disrespected. People forget that they were the first in the league last year. So yeah, I love the Dogs. Once Dylan Ward comes back, come on. He's the second top 2 goalie in the world. So love the value in the at the bottom of that lineup. If I was going to sell something though, here Cannons and Redwoods, I'd sell. I wouldn't even think about those. You're not looking at teams that could win it all. You're looking at teams that can make the playoffs. So I wouldn't even think about those bets.
Little buy and sell there from my man Doogs. Well, man, thank you so much for taking time out and hopping on here with us. Another great edition here of Over and Back. Thank you very much, man. And again, let people know where they can find you, where they can follow you, and where they can hear more from you, my brother.
Yeah, I'm Doogs. That's D00GS on TikTok and Twitter. Mick Doogs on Instagram. Just follow us on the Crease Dive. That's at the Crease Dive on all socials. And we're on YouTube putting out goalie challenges, putting out pitch shows, recap shows. So just make sure to subscribe us there.
Speaking of subscribe, make sure you hit that like button here and subscribe to the page. You can find us on the PLL's YouTube page each and every week here with Over and Back. So again, huge thanks to my man Doogs. I'm your host, Dan Alexander. Make sure you're betting responsibly, and we'll talk to you next week here on Over and Back.